You were encouraged to believe that wanting control is a sign of insecurity. Notice the outcome. The people who repeat that line spend their days reacting to other people's calendars, other people's moods, other people's rules. They call it being easygoing. It feels like relief in public and resentment in private. That belief keeps you safe from judgment and permanently dependent. Here is the part that makes people uncomfortable. Control feels good, not in a loud way. In the quiet way, your nervous system relaxes when your actions produce the result you intended. When you knew what would happen and you were right. You have been trained to distrust that feeling. You were told to call it rigid. You were told to label it toxic. And yet your mind rewards it with focus, steadiness, and a clean kind of satisfaction that random pleasure never provides. This is the first divide that matters. There are people who treat life as a stream they drift in. They outsource decisions, then explain away the cost. There are people who treat life as a sequence of commitments. They accept the weight, then collect the benefits. One identity weights, justifies, and blames novelty or luck. The other decides, measures, and accepts exposure. The gap between those identities widens every year. If you think this is only a moral lecture, you are missing the point. The preference for control sits on biology. Dopamine does not only spike with novelty. It also spikes with prediction that turns out right. When your brain's forecast matches the outcome, your reward circuits register competence. That feeling is not imaginary, it is reinforcement. When you have agency, your cortisol tends to fall because the amygdala flags less uncertainty. Seligman showed decades ago that animals exposed to uncontrollable stress become passive even when escape is available. Their physiology adapts to helplessness. In humans, learned helplessness looks like chronic exhaustion and selective blindness. The opposite is learned agency. Small acts of control increase effort, attention, and resilience. The Whitehall studies linked low job control to higher rates of disease and mortality. The lever matters. Even the illusion of a lever changes stress responses. Ellen Langer's work on perceived control showed it. People with a choice from identical options perform better and feel better, even when the options do not change the actual outcome. Your system runs on control. You can pretend it does not. Your body will not. Philosophy did not miss this. The Stoics were not telling you to surrender your standards. They were separating control into two domains. Epictetus said, "What is not up to you should not consume you." He did not say nothing is up to you. He said your judgments, your choices, your endurance are. That is control. Nietzsche described the will to power as the expansion of strength, not a cartoon of cruelty. Power starts with self-direction. Machiavelli wrote that fortune is a woman who yields to the bold. People still misread the line to excuse recklessness. He was pointing at preparation and initiative. History rewards those who impose order on chaos inside their circle, then expand that circle with discipline. It punishes those who mistake submission for virtue. Right now, almost everything around you nudges you away from control. Platforms gamify your attention into micro-impulses. Companies swallow your time with false urgency. Social narratives shame hard standards. The word control gets paired with control freak, not with control of attention, control of diet, control of schedule, control of temper. You are trained to hide your preference for control, then sold products that simulate it. Endless settings, endless dashboards. No ownership. That is not an accident. Power organizes itself to reward your compliance and mock your clarity. If you want to be free of slogans, look at outcomes again. People who dismiss control often live at the mercy of their cravings. They rely on external discipline to replace internal strength. They move in short bursts, then crash. They collect interesting experiences and avoid high-exposure commitments. They need constant reassurance that their way works. People who admit they like control build environments that remove typical traps. They create routines that compress decision fatigue. They choose measurable goals over vague wishes. They endure the boredom of repetition. They do not need the world to reward them every day because their own behavior does. These are different lives. The pleasure of control is not hedonism. It is alignment. Your actions match your stated values. Your words predict your behavior. Your calendar reflects your priorities. That coherence produces relief. Dissonance fades. Festinger documented what happens when behavior and belief diverge. Minds twist themselves into rationalization. Control closes the gap by forcing one side to match the other. You can achieve that by lowering your standards, which is the path sold everywhere. Or you can achieve it by raising behavior until it matches your stated values. That is control. It feels better because it is cleaner. There is a reason people are afraid to admit they enjoy control. Once you admit it, you lose the cover story. If you say you value control, then every place you have none becomes a public statement. You can no longer pretend that constant distraction is an accident. You can no longer pretend that poor health is unlucky. You can no longer pretend that weak relationships are just complicated. You chose not to control what you could. You chose not to prepare. That truth is heavy. It is also liberating. Responsibility creates leverage. When the cause lives inside you, the solution lives there too. The common objection arrives fast. Control is an illusion. Outcomes are chaotic. That is correct at the edge of the system. It is not correct inside the band where you live. You cannot control the market. You can control your savings rate and your risk exposure. You cannot control other people's opinions. You can control the quality of your work and the integrity of your conduct. You cannot control your genetic baseline. You can control sleep, food, training, and stimulus. Statistical agency is not perfect certainty. It is probability shifted in your favor through repeatable inputs. That is enough to change a life. Another objection says that desire for control turns you cold, only if you confuse cruelty with boundaries. Control does not require humiliation. It requires standards, trade-offs, and the willingness to end bad arrangements. Keltner's power approach inhibition theory shows that power reduces social inhibition and increases goal focus. Without ethics, you get abuse. With ethics, you get decisive leadership. The difference is not the energy. It is the aim. Stoic justice ties control to duty. If you attach your control to service or craft, you protect it from rot. Let us name what control actually looks like in practice, so the word stops floating. Control of attention. When and how you expose yourself to stimulus. Control of state. How you downshift arousal so you can think. Control of time. How you block hours for deep work, recovery, and relationships. Control of appetite. What you consume and in what volume. Control of language. Words you allow into your head and out of your mouth. Control of selection. People and environments you allow near you. Control of exit. Your ability to leave any deal that violates your standards. None of that requires drama. All of it is measurable. You already know where you fail. You do not need a complex system to admit it. The most dangerous trap is fake control. Cosmetic settings, busy work, constant planning with no consequence. It feels like power and produces nothing. The nervous system gets the brief hit and then emptiness returns. Real control carries delayed reward. You feel it after the session, after the meeting, after the decision that cost you. It has weight, and it compounds. You will know the difference by your results after a quarter, not your feelings after a morning. There is also the social cost. Once people see you enjoy control, they test it. They tell you to relax. They tell you to be more flexible. They position their preferences as moral claims. You do not need to fight. You need to be specific. This is what I am doing. These are the terms. Here is what I accept. Here is what I will not. Calm clarity drains their leverage. The tests fade when they stop working. That is not cruelty. That is adult life. You may think this all sounds extreme. It is not. It is basic self-governance. Every serious tradition honors it. The Spartans called it discipline. The Buddhists call it right effort. The Stoics call it temperance. Words change. The nerve behind them has been the same across centuries. Those who command themselves are rare and therefore valuable. Those who cannot command themselves get commanded, then complain about the terms. The world is not confused about this. Only your era is. The deeper layer is this. Control is not only a tool, it is an identity. When you consistently direct your attention, your prediction errors shrink, your confidence stabilizes, and your reputation aligns with your results. Others begin to expect competence from you. That expectation opens doors and tightens the margin for error. Your life becomes stricter and larger at the same time. Most people avoid that because they want wide options with no pressure. They end up with narrow options and constant pressure. You are offered a choice. Accept pressure on your terms now, or live under pressure on other people's terms later. You may be waiting for permission to feel good about this. You will not get it. Culture prefers that you apologize for taking control because unarmed people are easier to program. The incentives are clear. Platforms profit when you scroll instead of act. Food companies profit when you chase taste over nutrition. Employers profit when you are always reachable and never centered. Friends profit when you stay predictable to their needs. None of this is evil in isolation. Together it forms a net. The only clean response is to state your aims and structure your life to serve them. Apology optional. Explanation rare. Here is the ethical line. Control starts with the self and radiates outward through consent. You control your conduct. You control your commitment. You control your boundaries. You do not control other people's sovereignty. You offer terms and enforce your limits. They are free to accept them or leave. Influence will always exist in human groups. Foucault wrote about power as relational, not a single possession. You decide whether your role in that web is reactive or deliberate. That choice determines your respect for others and their respect for you. The pleasure you are afraid to admit is not domination. It is steadiness. It is the quiet after you did what you said you would do. It is the lower pulse when you enter rooms prepared. It is the ease of saying no because your yes already has a home. It is the relief of plans that survive reality because they were built with margins. It is the pride of refusing shortcuts that keep you soft. It does not post well. It wins silently. If you need a bridge between theory and practice, start with one domain, not everything. Choose the space that leaks the most energy. Give it boundaries. Remove one source of chaos from it. Track a relevant measure that matters to you and only you. In a month, ask whether the feeling is fake or real. If it is real, expand carefully. If it is fake, reduce the theater. You will not need anyone's opinion to know. Your results will tell you. Some will hear this and label it obsessive. They have a right to their frame. Ask yourself who you trust more over time. The person who pilots their behavior with intent, or the person who changes lanes every week and calls it freedom. Trust follows reliability. Reliability follows control. That is not a value judgment. That is human pattern recognition. Your brain, and then other people's brains, update on consistent evidence. There is a last hurdle. The memory of your past lack of control. You fear hypocrisy. You think you need a perfect record before you can claim this identity. You do not. Control is not a birthright. It is a practice. You will fail. You will correct. You will refine your standard until it fits reality and raises it simultaneously. That is how masters are made. By cuts against impulse that form a spine. Not by slogans and guilt. I am not asking you to obsess over everything. I am telling you to take ownership over the inputs that actually move your life. The rest can be relaxed. Control buys you the freedom to loosen your grip where it does not matter. The person with no control anywhere has to clutch at everything. That is why they are exhausted. You already feel it. The small surge when your room is in order and your tasks are clear. The small calm when you train on schedule. The small pride when you speak precisely instead of hedging. That is not vanity. That is your system telling you the world is now more predictable and that you are the reason. You are allowed to enjoy that. You are supposed to enjoy that. It is the honest reward your brain offers for self-mastery. Most people will keep pretending they do not like this feeling. They prefer the theater of spontaneity to the substance of strength. They will age into a persona that explains away wasted time. That is not your path if you choose it not to be. If you can admit the pleasure of control without apology, you qualify for a different class of life, smaller circle, higher stakes, better sleep. Do not advertise it. Do not argue about it. Select it. Build it quietly. Protect it. And when someone asks why you seem calm while they spin, tell them the truth they have been trained to avoid. Control is not about other people. It is about owning your actions and accepting the cost. If that sounds heavy, it is. If it sounds restrictive, it is the opposite. It is the key that opens variables you cannot touch from any other angle. If you are ready, start with the smallest lever you will actually pull. Keep pulling. Watch the pressure transfer from your chest into your hands. You will know you have joined the right minority when the urge to explain disappears and the urge to execute takes its place. This is not for everyone. It never was. But if you heard this and felt the sharp recognition of something you had been avoiding, the door is open. Step through it and do not look back.